Here it is, a few months after waiting for it to arrive, after having gotten my Kickstarter pledge. This is the TimeStrike pre-colored plastic miniatures. We're going to take a look at these and just have some comparisons to pre-painted miniatures, washed miniatures, hand-painted brush miniatures, etc. Not that the hand-painted brush miniatures for me are going to be much of a comparison because it's different skills for different folks, but I just wanted to show some different options because this is a quote-unquote first of its kind pre-colored plastic tabletop miniatures game. This was Adventure Together Games partnering with MyMiniFactory and only games to bring these miniatures to the table. So I'm going to open up the box here. I got my pledge and we'll see what some of the miniatures look like. But before I get into it, I must address some negative things to me as a consumer. Now, this is not saying Adventure Together Games is a bad company by any means. No, I understand that the landscape of the gaming world has changed in hobbies and stuff in the last few years, but I was waiting for these months after my actual Kickstarter arrived. However, the good people at Adventure Together Games kept us updated, got these sent out, and they arrived. So while it is a bit late, I understand the reasons, but that doesn't mean I like it being late. So now let's take a look at the quality. This is probably not going to be how all of these boxes are for everyone forever, but upon opening my box, the first thing I got was a thank you card with a handwritten note. So that was a nice little touch, because I know the people at Adventure Together Games did not want this to be delayed. So it's here, though. So stop dwelling on the delay, and let's take a look at the quality. First off, I hate this texture. I cannot stand it, and it's in everything. I understand its usefulness, though. It is not the miniatures that... Blech. But this will probably never be used again once I get these miniatures out of this box. But that's not part of a quality review, is it? That's a subjective texture aversion. First up, we have Luxuria. Here we have Mara the Meek. Roland Rumpus. Gula. The Mana Worms, which I must say, if you are taking these out of this packaging, be a little careful, because these are quite brittle. Side note about that being quote-unquote very brittle. The Mana Worms so far are the only ones that have felt a little bit, and that's just their tentacles or antenna or whatever, their extremities. So putting them back in the box and stuff, I snapped off a few of their things. That is not to say that the rest of these are all hyper brittle. Then we have Hod, or Hode, H-O-D. Then we have Legion. Jake Alland, or Jake Alland. And that was an up-close look at the pre-colored miniatures. Those were the 11 miniatures that came with the Source Deluxe Kickstarter pledge that I had. They did send out the unpainted ones of the monsters like Abaddon and Fear, because those ones just weren't available in the pre-colored option. But these 11 were. So a few of the familiars and stuff also were not. But these are really neat looking. It's something I've never seen before. There's no paint on these at all. This is just all pre-colored plastic. And it looks pretty good. I've seen what Hero Forge and stuff was trying to offer, and it didn't, I don't know, it didn't look like this. This is just something new. And I know it's very early on, and it'll probably only get better as people develop the technology, but this is a pretty awesome looking start. So now I'll compare a few things and just show you how it looks. And again, just to go back to the Mana Worms, these are the only ones that felt brittle, but that was these things. If you're grabbing the miniature, just grab it by its base. That's just a good habit anyway. These just came off and were bent from getting them out of this horrible texture. This is the safest way to travel with these miniatures and stuff, though. This stuff is cut so it expands and bends according to shapes. Just this poor tall Mana Worm suffered some appendage loss. Now, most games come in a standard unpainted gray plastic, but not all plastic is gray. Some is light blue, dark green, etc. Can pretty much come in any color. But here is how the pre-colored plastic compares to some unpainted, including a guest appearance by the giant from Blood Rage that actually got me into miniatures gaming and kickstarting and all of these massive titles. I've always liked them and stuff, but seeing this miniature got me hooked on miniatures. So I guess thanks Mountain Giant for being my first ever Kickstarter and also a catalyst to my basement having no room. Now another way miniatures tend to come is with a wash over just the unpainted miniature to give them some depth and shadow. So again, this pre-colored plastic is just something new and it looks pretty good in my opinion. And then of course you have them compared to pre-painted miniatures, these ones being pre-painted over 15 years ago, these ones being pre-painted within the last 2 years. So you can see just the different qualities of even how painting is done in the factories now and then. But this pre-colored is supposed to cut back on the time and the labor cost of pre-painted miniatures. And probably the most pointless comparison of these comparisons that are already pointless is the pre-colored plastic compared to hand-painted with brush and speed paints, hand-painted on green stuff molded custom add-ons to the miniature model with other dry brush and wet blending techniques. So this is pre-colored plastic compared to my skills as a painter that have also changed over the years. These look great. These took hours to do. This probably took just a little bit of time to print. So this is all new to me. That's why I'm doing these comparisons. This is just something I never would have thought possible for a quality like this. And if this is the first miniatures quality, I've turned into Mario for a second. This is going to be a technology that really pushes a lot forward and is going to really shine on the table and hopefully save a lot of production costs and stuff. Now, I would not want every game to switch to this pre-colored plastic and stuff because it has a little bit of a unique look to it. Like everything looks like it's kind of cold, like it has a layer of frost on it or something, which is not necessarily a bad look. It's just something unique. And again, I attribute this to being the first time this is done. The technology will change. The amount of colors and shadows and everything will change as well. This is really cool. I really like it. I am blown away by what they were able to do with this. So looking forward to see how everything shapes in the future. And that was a look at the pre-colored miniatures from TimeStrike. And that comes from Adventure Together Games, who made TimeStrike, Shadow of Fear, and the Source system, which is a 3D customizable tile system and game design system where you can make games like this that hopefully someday can be put into production. They have a lot of titles right now that are in testing stages and coming in the future. One last comparison though, and this one's important. Here's what the pre-colored plastic miniatures look like next to 100% official but never fully produced but should be tournament legal HeroScape unit Samuel Brown. Just for scale.